evening, and this is your prime source for today's top stories. The city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, is preparing to award its Black community a $105 million, 73.8 million pounds, reparations package to address the harms caused by the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, one of the largest and most violent racial attacks in U.S. history. The plan, by Monroe Nichols, Tulsa's first Black mayor, focuses on community redevelopment and does not involve direct payments to descendants or the two remaining survivors of the attack. Nichols made the announcement on Sunday during Tulsa's first ever official Tulsa Race Massacre Observance Day. The funds, raised by a private trust, includes $24 million for a housing fund and $60 million for a cultural preservation fund focused on reducing blight. The Tulsa Race Massacre has been a stain on our city's history. Hidden from history books, Nichols said. That tragedy, he said, was compounded by economic harms that followed, namely the building of a highway to choke off economic vitality, perpetual underinvestment, and intentional acts of redlining, where Black people were denied home and property loans. Now it's time to take the next big steps to restore, Nichols said. The plan is called Road to Repair, and its funds will be managed by the Greenwood Trust. It seeks to have $105 million in assets either secured or committed by June 1st, some of which would also go into a legacy fund for the trust to acquire and develop land. Nichols said the proposal would not require city council approval. The council would, however, authorize the transfer of any city property to the trust, which he said was very likely. The Greenwood Trust borrows its name from Tulsa's Greenwood District, a once prosperous Black neighborhood with an economy so thriving that it was dubbed Black Wall Street. That all changed in May 1921, when a white mob burned it to the ground, destroying more than 1,000 homes and structures in less than 24 hours. An estimated 300 Black residents were killed and many more injured. The event robbed Tulsa of an economic future that would have rivaled anywhere else in the world, Nichols said in a phone interview. For decades, the story of the massacre was largely erased from history, but it was thrust into the spotlight in 2020 when then President Donald Trump announced he would hold an election rally in Tulsa on June 19th, or Juneteenth, the day commemorating the end of slavery. He rescheduled the rally, and his successor, Joe Biden, declared Juneteenth a national holiday. The Tulsa reparations will be made as Trump, now back in the White House, is ending diversity, equity, and inclusion, DI, practices in the U.S. government, and many major companies are abandoning or reducing their diversity initiatives. Tulsa's package is also the first large-scale plan that commits funds to addressing the impact of a specific racially motivated attack. Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, became the first city to make reparations available to its Black residents in 2021 by offering qualified households money for expenses such as home repairs and down payments. Americans have long been divided over directly addressing past acts of racism, such as slavery, through paying reparations. In May, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, the state's first Black governor, said he would veto a measure to create a commission for studying reparations in his state. Meanwhile, California last year apologized for past discrimination against Black Americans and approved some reparations initiatives, but did not offer direct financial payments. The last two known survivors of the Tulsa Race Massacre, Leslie Benningfield Randall and Viola Ford Fletcher, lost a long court battle seeking reparations last summer. Next news this hour, a second round of direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have ended without a major breakthrough, and only a deal to swap more prisoners of war. Ukrainian negotiators said Russia had again rejected an unconditional ceasefire, a key demand by Kyiv and its allies in Europe and the U.S., but the two committed to return the bodies of 12,000 soldiers. The Russian team said it had proposed a 2- or 3-day truce in certain areas of the vast front line, but gave no further details. At Monday's talks, which were held in the Turkish city of Istanbul and lasted just over an hour, the two sides did agree to exchange all sick and heavily wounded prisoners of war, as well those aged under 25. Expectations were low even before the talks started, with both sides remaining deeply divided on how to end a war that has been raging since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Moscow currently controls about 20% of Ukrainian territory, including the southern Crimea peninsula it annexed in 2014. Ukraine accuses Russia of undermining next round of peace talks. The terrifying new weapon changing the war in Ukraine. Speaking at a briefing after the meeting, Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, who led Kiev's negotiating team, said Ukraine was insisting on a full and an unconditional ceasefire for at least 30 days on land, at sea, and in the air to end the killings now. He said Ukraine had handed over its truce proposals to Russia a few days ago, but Moscow failed to do the same, presenting its plan only at the talks in Istanbul. The texts of both the Russian and Ukrainian ceasefire proposals have not officially been made public. However, Russian state-run media published what they say are key points of Moscow's position after the talks concluded. These include unchanged demands of a Ukrainian military withdrawal from its 4 partly occupied regions in the southeast, and the demobilization of its soldiers. Russia also demands international recognition of Ukraine's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia regions, as well as the annexed Crimea. Other conditions include a ban on Ukraine's membership in any military alliances, a limit on the size of the Ukrainian army, Russian as an official language, and the lifting of international sanctions on Russia. Ukrainian Deputy Foreign Minister Serhiy Kyslytsya said that Russia had rejected the unconditional ceasefire. Ukraine also handed over a list of hundreds of children Kiev says have been forcefully taken to Russia. Ukraine's negotiators said they were expecting Russia's response to their proposals by the end of June, stressing the need to prepare for direct talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russia's Vladimir Putin. But so far, there is no sign of any progress towards a meeting between the two presidents. Speaking at a separate news briefing, Russian delegation head Vladimir Medinsky confirmed all sick and heavily wounded prisoners of war, as well as those younger than 25, would be exchanged. No time frame was given as to when this would happen. Medinsky also said that Russia would hand over the bodies of 6,000 Ukrainian soldiers to Kiev next week. Zelensky also said later on Monday that Ukraine would return the bodies of 6,000 Russian soldiers, but did not specify when this would occur. Rejecting an unconditional ceasefire, Russia prefers to talk about lasting peace, repeating its previous tough demands, which Ukraine and its allies say are tantamount to Kiev's de facto capitulation. Zelensky, who was attending a summit in Vilnius, Lithuania on Monday, said that while there are no meaningful signals from Russia to end the war, it is important to strengthen our defense. He also called for more pressure through sanctions on Russia. In the first round of direct peace talks, held on May 16th, Ukraine and Russia failed to bridge their differences on how to end the war, agreeing only to swap 1,000 prisoners of war each. Zelensky and his European allies have repeatedly accused Russia of deliberately delaying any meaningful negotiations to seize more Ukrainian territory. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been pushing for a quick settlement, has so far delayed hitting Russia with tougher sanctions. In a rare rebuke last month, Trump called Putin absolutely crazy following a massive drone and missile attacks on Ukraine. In response, the Kremlin said Trump was showing signs of emotional overload. Next on this hour, the FBI says an attack in Boulder, Colorado, that injured 8 people was a targeted act of violence, and they are investigating it as an act of terrorism. Officials say the suspect planned the attack for a year, watching videos on how to make Molotov cocktails before driving from his home in Colorado Springs to Boulder to target a group gathering in support of Israeli hostages. The suspect told police after he was arrested that he wanted to kill all Zionist people, according to court documents. What happened? A group of people had gathered for a regularly scheduled, weekly, peaceful event, which was organized by Run for Their Lives, an organization that raises awareness for Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Officials said that a suspect threw 2 incendiary devices into the group of people and used a makeshift flamethrower to attack them. They said a suspect has been identified as Mohammed Sabri Solomon, 45. Mr. Solomon was taken to hospital shortly after the attack, the FBI said. Near the scene of the crime, officials say they found 14 unlit Molotov cocktails in a plastic container, as well as a weed sprayer filled with octane gas. Police said they were fairly confident that they had the lone suspect in custody. There was no evidence the suspect was connected to a wider group. The suspect was heard to yell "Free Palestine" during the attack, said Special Agent in charge of the Denver field office of the FBI, Mark Mahalik. He added, "It is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism." Who is the suspect? The suspect, Mohammed Sabri Solomon, has been charged with a federal hate crime and has also been booked in Boulder County Jail on charges including attempted murder, assault, and use of an explosive device. He was also charged with murder. However, Boulder Police Department confirmed on Monday none of the victims have died. The reasons for the murder charge were not immediately clear. The BBC has contacted Boulder County Sheriffs and Boulder Police. The 45-year-old is an Egyptian national, government officials confirmed to the BBC's broadcast partner, CBS News, in Colorado. The suspect told police in an interview after his arrest that he had planned the attack for a year and waited until his daughter graduated, according to court documents. He had allegedly watched YouTube videos on how to make Molotov cocktails and purchased the ingredients, picking up gasoline at a gas station on his way to Boulder from his home in Colorado Springs. Federal officials allege Mr. Solomon said he wished all Zionists were dead and that he would conduct more attacks. The suspect told police he found the Run for Their Lives group in an online search and showed up 5 minutes before their meeting to wait for them, officials said. Mr. Solomon left an iPhone hidden in a drawer in his house with messages for his family, according to court documents. In 2022, Mr. Solomon arrived in California on a non-immigrant visa that expired in February 2023. Multiple sources have told CBS News. He had recently been living in Colorado Springs. Tricia McLaughlin, an assistant secretary at the Department of Homeland Security, said in a post on X that the suspect is illegally in our country and had filed for asylum in September 2022. Trump's deputy chief of staff for policy, Stephen Miller, said on X that Mr. Solomon was given a work permit by the Biden administration after he had overstayed his visa. Who are the victims? There are 8 victims, aged between 52 and 88. 4 are women and 4 are men. All of them have been taken to hospitals with burns and other injuries. The injuries range from minor to very serious. The eldest of the victims is a Holocaust survivor, Rabbi Israel Wilhelm, the Chabad director at the University of Colorado Boulder, has told CBS. Wilhelm described the 88-year-old as a very loving person. What is Run for Their Lives? Run for Their Lives holds walking and running events around the world calling for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas, according to their website. It says its events are not protests, but peaceful walks. Their website says there are currently 230 active groups around the world, with the majority in North America and Europe. The groups meet once a week for a 1-kilometer walk wearing red t-shirts. They also carry national flags of the citizens who are among the hostages still held in Gaza. The Run for Their Lives Instagram account has more than 6,000 followers. Their Facebook group has more than 2,000 members. The movement was started by a group of Israelis in California, but local events are independently led, according to their website. What is happening now? The investigations continue and more briefings from the police and the FBI are expected on Monday. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has said her department is working with interagency partners, including the FBI, and would share more information when it becomes available. We are praying for the victims and their families. This violence must stop, she said. The suspect is also due for his first court appearance on Monday. How is the Jewish community responding? Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Saar, released a statement saying he was shocked by the incident, which he called pure anti-Semitism. The Jewish community in Boulder released a statement saying, "Our hearts go out to those who witnessed this horrible attack, and prayers for a speedy recovery to those who were injured. When events like this enter our own community, we are shaken." This is the second high-profile attack on the Jewish community in recent days. 2 young people were shot dead outside a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. by a gunman who shouted, "Free Palestine." Data from the Anti-Defamation League suggests anti-Semitic incidents spiked to a record level in 2023 and again in 2024.
watching TLT, where news meets clarity. Let's get into it. Banksy's new mural in Marseille is not the first image he has connected to the history of ideas. From Plato to Foucault, a Banksy expert reveals the philosophy behind these popular artworks. Which is the real you, the person you are now or the one you are capable of becoming? It's a heady question, to be sure, and not one you would expect to be confronted with while strolling down a street in Marseille in the waning days of May. Yet it's precisely the existential dilemma that Banksy, who once asserted being yourself is overrated, has surreptitiously installed in a cloistered stretch of the quiet Rue Félix Frégier, the site of a new work, the latest installment in the elusive artist's decades-long career as a provocative philosophical prankster. For more than 30 years, Banksy has spiked many of his most iconic works, from his girl reaching hopelessly for a heart-shaped balloon to his masked rioter hurling a bouquet of flowers, with barbed allusions to old masters, from Michelangelo to Monet, Vermeer to Van Gogh. But there's more. Beneath his stealthy stencils lies a deep and deliberate engagement with the history of ideas as well, from classical Stoicism to postmodern deconstructionism. On May 29th, Banksy posted on Instagram a photo of his first new piece in more than 5 months, piquing the internet's interest by withholding its precise location. Discovered shortly thereafter in the major port city in southern France, Marseille, the mural is, at first glance, deceptively simple, a tall silhouette of a lighthouse spray-painted onto a blank beige urban wall, a rusting street bollard positioned nearby, and a painted shadow stretching across the pavement, joining the real-world object to its augmented, if two-dimensional, echo. Stenciled across the black lighthouse are the words, "I want to be what you saw in me." Anyone keen to find a source for the ideas that inform Banksy's new work needs merely to flip open any history of philosophy to Plato's seminal allegory of the cave, from the 4th century BC treatise The Republic, then flip the ancient metaphor on its head. In Plato's parable, prisoners chained inside a cave mistake shadows on the wall for reality, unaware of the truer forms that cast them outside. But here, Banksy, being Banksy, baits us by switching the setup, reversing the relationship between essence and shadow. In Banksy's mural, the drab bollard casts not a diminished imitation of itself, but something far grander, a lighthouse, a symbol of illumination and guidance. Here, it's the silhouette, not reality, that's true. Banksy's inversion urges us to ask where reality really resides, in what is, or in what might be. His poignant phrase, "I want to be what you saw in me," is alluringly elastic. Is this the bollard dreaming of being more than it appears? Or the shadow wishing to become light? Or is it all of us, Banksy included, struggling to live up to the better versions imagined by those who believe in us? The answer is surely yes to all of the above. And it's a yes too to the question, is this new work a lamp capable of shining light on further levels of meaning in Banksy? What follows is a brief look back at some of the artist's best-known works and how they too are invigorated by, and often upend, many of the most important philosophical tenets, both social and intellectual, that underwrite who we are and who we might be. Banksy's new mural in Marseille is not the first to be accompanied by an affecting caption connecting the piece to the history of ideas. Among his most famous murals, Girl with Balloon, which portrays a child reaching towards a heart-shaped balloon drifting away from her, first appeared in 2002 in various locations in London, including on the South Bank, alongside the consoling assertion, "There is always hope." That conviction, which fuels the ceaseless striving for an ideal that is seemingly unobtainable in the mural, "There is no way that balloon is coming back," rhymes richly with aspects of 19th-century German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer's ideas concerning an unquenchable and irrational will as a fundamental force that drives humanity. When, years later, Banksy mischievously concealed a remote-controlled shredder in the frame of a version of Girl with Balloon that came up for auction in 2018, and sensationally destroyed the work before the eyes of aghast auction-goers, he succeeded in upping the ante on Schopenhauer's belief in the futility of desire by boldly manifesting it himself. Where there's a will, there's a fray. Banksy's famous mural of a masked man frozen forever in the instant before he unleashes not a brick or a bomb but a bouquet of flowers may seem, at first blush, to exemplify a pacifist's commitment to peaceful disobedience. The work appears to echo the precepts of Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha, a philosophy of nonviolence that the Indian ethicist coined in 1919. Banksy's fully flexed figure, incongruously armed with a fistful of beauty, appears to epitomize Gandhi's insistence on wielding moral, not physical, strength. Doesn't it? Or has Banksy slyly subverted the philosophical assertion of pacifistic force by portraying his hero as an enraged rioter? The figure's anger has not been tempered by an appeal to the higher ideals of beauty and truth. Instead, those ideals have been weaponized by Banksy. Here, beauty and truth are not disarming, they are devastatingly explosive. Banksy's mural in Marseille employs a tried-and-true technique to ensure the work protrudes into the urban space in which we'll encounter it, elevating its philosophical potential from something flimsy and flat to something undeniably urgent. It's a tactic he used in a 2007 work that appeared near London's Oxford Street, in which he depicts a boy atop a precariously high ladder, spray painting the penetrating observation that we are one nation under CCTV in outlandishly outsized letters. Also portrayed within the mural is a uniformed officer and his obedient police dog who surveil the young vandal, while above them all an actual CCTV camera, presumably recording everything, juts out from the wall. The endless layers of surveillance within surveillance to which the work attests, as we watch the state watch an officer watch the boy, captures with uncanny precision the philosophical contours of the vast and all-encompassing prison machine in which the French post-structural philosopher Michel Foucault believed everyone in society was now irredeemably enmeshed. In Foucault's study Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison, he resuscitates a blueprint for a prison proposed by the British utilitarian philosopher Jeremy Bentham at the end of the 18th century, the panopticon, meaning all-seeing, and uses it as a menacing metaphor for how no one can escape the perniciously penetrating eye of the panoptical state. Banksy's witty 2014 work Mobile Lovers shines a chilling light on the state of contemporary relationships. The mural depicts a couple whose almost affectionate embrace is interrupted by the deeper fondness they have for the warm glow of their smartphones. The French existentialist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, who died in 1986, may not have lived long enough to witness the emergence of mobiles. Yet her profoundly influential 1947 book The Ethics of Ambiguity, published exactly 60 years before the iPhone was launched in 2007, with its exploration of the devastation that detachment and disconnection can wreak on the realization of our truest selves, is profoundly proleptic of our modern predicament. To be free, de Beauvoir insisted, requires a deep attentiveness to each other. She believed in the authenticity of human encounters, without which life is a futile performance, dimly lit by disposable devices, rather than something profound and meaningful. Next on the hour, Microsoft founder Bill Gates says that most of his fortune will be spent on improving health and education services in Africa over the next 20 years. The 69-year-old said that by unleashing human potential through health and education, every country in Africa should be on a path to prosperity. Speaking in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa, he also urged Africa's young innovators to think about how to build artificial intelligence, AI, to improve healthcare on the continent. Gates announced last month that he would give away 99% of his vast fortune, which he expects to reach $200 billion, £150 billion, by 2045, by when his foundation planned to end its operations. I recently made a commitment that my wealth will be given away over the next 20 years. The majority of that funding will be spent on helping you address challenges here in Africa, he said in an address at the African Union, AU, headquarters. Mozambique's former First Lady Graca Machel welcomed his announcement, saying it came in a moment of crisis. We are counting on Mr. Gates' steadfast commitment to continue walking this path of transformation alongside us, she said. The U.S. government has cut aid to Africa, including programs to treat patients with HIV/AIDS, as part of U.S. President Donald Trump's America First policy, raising concerns about the future of healthcare on the continent. Gates said his foundation, which has a long history of operating in Africa, would focus on improving primary health care. What we've learned is that helping the mother be healthy and have great nutrition before she gets pregnant, while she is pregnant, delivers the strongest results, he said. Ensuring the child receives good nutrition in their first 4 years as well makes all the difference. In a message to young innovators, the tech billionaire noted that mobile phones had revolutionized banking in Africa and argued that AI should now be used for the continent's benefit. Africa largely skipped traditional banking, and now you have a chance, as you build your next-generation healthcare systems, to think about how AI is built into that, he said. Gates pointed to Rwanda as an example, saying it was already improving services using AI-enabled ultrasound to identify high-risk pregnancies. The Gates Foundation said it had 3 priorities: ending preventable deaths of mothers and babies, ensuring the next generation grows up without having to suffer from deadly infectious diseases, and lifting millions of people out of poverty. At the end of 20 years, the foundation will sunset its operations, it said in a statement. Last month, Gates said he would accelerate his giving via his foundation. People will say a lot of things about me when I die, but I am determined that he died rich will not be one of them, he wrote in a blog post. Giving away 99% of his fortune could still leave the 5th richest person in the world a billionaire, according to Bloomberg. Along with Paul Allen, Gates founded Microsoft in 1975, and the company soon became a dominant force in software and other tech industries. Gates has gradually stepped back from the company in recent decades, resigning as its chief executive in 2000 and as chairman in 2014. He said he had been inspired to give away money by investor Warren Buffett and other philanthropists. However, critics of his foundation say Gates uses its charitable status to avoid tax and that it has undue influence over the global health system. More in news, an al-Qaeda-linked group says it carried out a major attack on the Malian town of Bulakesi and the seizure of an army base there. More than 30 soldiers were killed in Sunday's attack, according to sources quoted by the news agency Reuters. However, that figure has not been confirmed by the authorities. On Monday, the same group, Jama'a Nusrat al-Islam wa al-Muslimin, JNIM, said it targeted the military in the historic city of Timbuktu, with residents reporting hearing gunfire and explosions. Mali's army said in a statement late on Monday that it had repelled an infiltration attempt by terrorist fighters in Timbuktu, neutralizing 14 militants and arresting 31 suspects. It added that weapons, vehicles, and other items were seized, but did not name the group responsible for the attack. The army said search operations across Timbuktu were ongoing. In an earlier statement, the army said it reacted vigorously to Sunday's attack, before withdrawing, suggesting a tactical retreat. Many men fought, some until their last breath, to defend the Malian nation, the statement added. An unnamed local source told Reuters that JNIM had left many casualties and cleared the camp. Unverified video footage showed dozens of militants storming the base, including one which captured them stepping on bodies, according to Reuters. In Monday's attack, JNIM said its fighters had attacked a military airport and Russian mercenaries. Military and security sources told the AFP news agency they were fighting back, but that the militants were everywhere in the city. A local official said the attackers had arrived with a vehicle packed with explosives that detonated close to the army camp. Timbuktu, a UN World Heritage Site, was captured by Islamist militants in 2012 before they were driven out, but has once more been under siege in recent years. The attacks, the latest sign of collapsing security in Mali and the wider Sahel region, came after the United States Africa Command warned about growing efforts by various different Islamist militant groups which operate in the Sahel to gain access to West Africa's coastline. During a press conference on Friday, the commander of United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, Gen. Michael Langley, described recent attacks in Nigeria, the wider Sahel, and the Lake Chad Basin as deeply troubling, warning that the group's access to the coast would significantly boost their capacity for smuggling and arms trafficking. It is thought that more than 400 soldiers have been killed by militants since the beginning of last month in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, Reuters reports. More this hour, the official death toll after deadly floods hit the Nigerian town of Makwa on Thursday has risen to more than 200, officials say. Another 500 people are still missing in the town in the central Niger state, however. Local official Musa Kimboka told the BBC that rescue efforts had ceased because authorities no longer believe anyone could still be found alive. The floods, said to be worst in the area for 60 years, swept through the Makwa districts of Tifin Maza and Anguwan Hausawa after torrential rains. In an effort to prevent disease in the area, authorities will soon start to dig out corpses buried underground, Makwa's district head Muhammadu Aliyu said. Recounting scenes of catastrophe, local residents told the BBC that they saw their homes and family members get washed away. One man, Adam Yusuf, lost his wife and newborn baby. I watched helplessly as water washed away my family. I survived because I could swim, he told the BBC. Another resident, Saliu Suleiman, said the floods had left him homeless and destroyed some of his cash business profits. I lost at least $1,500 to the floods. It was the proceeds from the sale of my farm produce the previous day. I contemplated going back into the room to get it, but the pressure of the water scared me. Some local residents have said that the flooding was so devastating because a nearby dam had burst. However, the authorities have not confirmed this. Residents said the pressure of the floodwater was so intense that bodies had been washed up in the town of Raba, at least an hour's drive from Makwa. Makwa's deputy vice chairman Musa Kimboka said they had told neighboring villages to bury any corpse that they find. District head Mr. Aliyu said some bodies were unrecoverable because they had gone through the River Niger. On Sunday, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, announced it had started the process of providing relief packages to people affected. The agency added in a post on Facebook that roads and bridges were also affected by the flood, which has had a knock-on effect on the local economy and traffic. The Nigerian Red Cross also released a statement on Friday saying the floods had caused significant loss of life and widespread distress. Floods are not uncommon during the Nigerian rainy season, which lasts from April until October. In 2024, Nigeria experienced flooding from heavy rain which caused deaths and drove people from their homes. There was also severe flooding in 2022, when more than 600 people died and 1.3 million were displaced.